From the outside, the Harringtons seemed like the perfect couple. He was a billionaire business magnate hailed in financial magazines. She was a philanthropist beloved by the city's most prestigious charities. Their picture-perfect marriage was splashed across the society pages, and everyone believed they lived a storybook romance. But behind the gilded walls of their Manhattan penthouse, secrets simmered. Late nights at the office, hushed phone calls, and a growing distance hinted that something was terribly wrong. Soon, whispers of betrayal would tear apart the carefully crafted illusion. What began as a fairy tale would soon unravel into a high-stakes battle for love, power, and justice. Angelina Harrington could no longer ignore the knot of anxiety that settled in her stomach each evening. She stood by the massive floor-to-ceiling window in the penthouse living room, gazing at the shimmering Manhattan skyline. The reflection of her tense face in the glass unnerved her. She barely recognized herself these days. She had once been so radiant, full of hope. Now, worry etched itself into the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. Her husband, Maxwell Harrington, was the billionaire CEO of Harrington Global Investments. He had always been an ambitious man, but in the past year, he had become almost unrecognizable. Late-night meetings, weekend business trips, vague answers whenever she asked for details. Angelina was no fool. She had grown up around wealth and power. Her father was a venture capitalist who had once shared dinners with Warren Buffett. She knew the language of deals and high finance. But something about Maxwell's behavior felt off. He was hiding something, and for the first time in their marriage, it seemed he was ashamed to look her in the eye. Angelina found herself replaying small details, searching for clues as to what might have changed. The fleeting glances at his phone that made him smile, the smell of unfamiliar perfume on his suit jacket, the abrupt hush that fell over him whenever she entered the room. One day, she decided enough was enough, and gently broached the subject. "Maxwell," she said, over a quiet breakfast of organic eggs and avocado toast in their opulent dining room. "Are you all right lately? You seem distracted." He glanced at her, stirring his coffee. "Just the usual hustle. Emerging markets are volatile, and the West Coast investors are breathing down my neck." He finished his coffee in a single gulp, his eyes avoiding hers. "I get that," she pressed, setting her fork down. "But you've never let that consume you to this extent before. You don't talk to me anymore." His jaw tightened. "I told you, Angie, there's nothing to worry about. Let's not turn every conversation into a therapy session." He picked up his phone, scrolling through messages. "I have to get to the office. There's a meeting I can't miss." He left so abruptly, she barely registered the front door closing. Alone at the table, Angelina sighed, a wave of loneliness rolling over her. She refused to be the naive, unsuspecting wife. Their marriage wasn't some business arrangement. At least, she believed it never had been. She wanted answers, but how to get them? That evening, she confided in her closest friend, Rachel Friedman, over a glass of Merlot at a chic restaurant off Park Avenue. Rachel had known Angelina since they were sorority sisters at Columbia University. If anyone could sense trouble, it was Rachel. Angelina's voice trembled as she spoke. "I feel like I'm going crazy, searching for signs everywhere, but I can't shake off this gut feeling that he's cheating." Rachel's eyes flashed with concern. "You need proof, Angie. If you confront him without evidence, he'll just deny it. And you know men like Maxwell. They're good at covering their tracks." "I've never been the suspicious type, but I can't ignore it anymore." Rachel leaned in. "Why not get a lawyer involved? A private investigator, at least? You've got enough resources to figure this out discreetly." Angelina nodded slowly. The thought of snooping on her own husband sickened her, but perhaps it was the only way. "I'll think about it." As the night wore on, Angelina stared at the city lights, her heart heavy with foreboding. She was about to open a door that no spouse ever wants to touch. Deep down, she feared what she might find on the other side. Still, her resolve hardened. She would not remain in the dark any longer. In the days following her conversation with Rachel, Angelina felt torn between her lingering faith in Maxwell and her rising suspicions. A shaky trust, built on over a decade of companionship, was threatening to collapse under the weight of her doubt. She tried to quell the paranoia by pouring her energy into her philanthropic work, arranging fundraisers for pediatric health care, organizing galas, and volunteering at local women's shelters. Yet, no matter how much she busied herself, the gnawing question remained. Why had Maxwell grown distant? One evening, after finishing a charity committee meeting on the Upper East Side, Angelina decided to pay Maxwell a surprise visit at his office. Perhaps he was simply swamped with work, and seeing it firsthand might reassure her that everything was above board. She hailed a cab, and in less than 20 minutes arrived at the sleek Harrington Global Tower. The building's lobby was a testament to Maxwell's penchant for grandeur: marble floors, soaring ceilings, and an enormous chandelier that rivaled those in European palaces. She flashed her special access badge at the security desk and took the private elevator to the executive floor. The corridor leading to Maxwell's corner office was dimly lit, most of the staff having left hours ago. She expected to find Maxwell buried in files, perhaps scowling at spreadsheets on his computer. Instead, she found his office empty. A single desk lamp illuminated the glossy mahogany desk. On it lay a scattering of papers, Maxwell's laptop, and to her surprise, a half-empty glass of whiskey. Angelina's heart pounded. Was he in a late meeting? It was nearly 9 p.m. She noticed his phone was still there, face down next to his laptop. That struck her as odd. Maxwell never left without his phone. She stepped deeper into the office. A quick glance revealed the heavy drapes drawn, giving the room an enclosed, secretive feel. A hush enveloped the space, broken only by the faint hum of the city below. Suddenly, the door to Maxwell's private lounge, a small annex where he sometimes took power naps, swung open. Her breath caught in her throat. But it wasn't Maxwell who emerged. It was a woman, elegant, with wavy brunette hair cascading down her shoulders, wearing a fitted black cocktail dress. Their eyes locked. The woman froze, her expression shifting from confident to startled in an instant. Angelina recognized her vaguely. She had seen her at corporate events, introduced only as Julia from marketing, but there was no mistaking the flush on her face, the tousled hair. Something in the pit of Angelina's stomach dropped. "Mrs. Harrington," the woman murmured, regaining composure more quickly than Angelina would have thought possible. "What a surprise!" Angelina's voice felt trapped in her throat. "Where is Maxwell?" Julia smoothed her dress. "He stepped out for a moment. He'll be back any second." The subtle smirk on her lips suggested she felt no shame. An icy silence descended. Angelina's mind raced, imagining all the worst possibilities. Before she could gather her wits, Maxwell strode into the office, eyes widening at the sight of his wife and mistress in the same room. "Angelina," he blurted, clearly taken aback. He quickly shot a glance at Julia, whose face had shifted into a mask of innocent curiosity. "What are you doing here?" Angelina's chest constricted with disbelief and heartbreak. She struggled to speak. I came to see if you were all right, but I see that you're busy. Julia quickly excused herself, slipping out of the room with a polite nod. The moment the door closed, Angelina fixed her gaze on Maxwell, tears threatening to spill. "I can explain," he began, his voice laced with desperation. "It's not what it looks like." Angelina gave him a withering look. "We both know exactly what it looks like." Shaken to her core, she turned to leave, but Maxwell grabbed her arm. She could feel the tension radiating from him. "Angelina, please," he pleaded. "Just give me a chance to explain." She pulled free, her voice trembling. "I'm done giving you chances, Maxwell." Without another word, she walked out of the office, her mind reeling with betrayal and the swift realization that her greatest fears were now confirmed. That night, as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she knew the foundation of her marriage had cracked beyond repair. In that moment of heartbreak, she resolved that if Maxwell wanted to play games with her heart, he would soon discover she was not the passive socialite he might have presumed her to be. In the harsh morning light, reality felt even more brutal. Angelina awoke to find Maxwell had come home in the middle of the night, but slept in one of the guest rooms. She heard him leave early, and by the time she got up, his side of the bed was cold and empty. The emptiness gnawed at her, but she forced herself to focus. She placed a call to Rachel Friedman. Within an hour, they were seated at Angelina's favorite cafe on Madison Avenue, sipping cappuccinos. The clatter of porcelain cups and the hum of morning chatter offered a semblance of normalcy. Angelina recounted the previous night's confrontation in a whisper. "I can't believe he did this to me, and he had the audacity to stand there, wanting to explain, as if any explanation could erase what I saw." Rachel listened intently, her eyes flickering with genuine concern. "This is more than enough proof, Angie. You saw them with your own eyes." Angelina nodded, swirling the foam in her cup. "But confronting him directly won't be enough. If he's been sneaking around this long, who's to say what lengths he'll go to protect himself?" "That's why you need a top-notch lawyer," Rachel insisted. "You've contributed so much to his success, not just as a wife, but as a partner in every sense of the word. If things escalate, and it seems they will, you need someone formidable on your side." Angelina sighed, her heart heavy. "I never thought I'd be the wife who hires a lawyer to catch her cheating husband." Rachel placed a comforting hand on her arm. "You're not just catching him, you're protecting yourself, your future, and your dignity. This is about ensuring you're not left in the dark." Angelina nodded resolutely. "You're right. I need to be prepared for whatever comes next." She checked her watch. "I'll call Talia Anderson. She's one of the best divorce attorneys in Manhattan." Talia Anderson had built her formidable reputation by representing high-profile clients in messy divorces. She was known for her razor-sharp legal mind and her unyielding tenacity in the courtroom. Over the years, she had become the go-to counsel for some of the city's wealthiest individuals, both men and women. Angelina had met Talia at a fundraiser for a legal aid society, and the two had hit it off. But Angelina never imagined she'd need Talia's services personally. That afternoon, Angelina arrived at Anderson and Friedman LLP, located in a sleek glass building near Central Park. The receptionist led her to Talia's corner office, which boasted floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bustling streets below. Talia greeted her warmly, dressed in a crisp navy suit that accentuated her commanding presence. "Angelina, it's good to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Please, sit." As Angelina relayed the entire tale, her suspicions, the confrontation at Maxwell's office, Julia's presence, Talia listened carefully, scribbling notes in a leather-bound pad. "So, you witnessed him with another woman, correct?" Talia asked, her voice cool and professional. Angelina nodded, tears threatening to form again. "Yes, and I don't know how long it's been going on, but I can't keep living in denial." Talia tapped her pen on the pad. "First, we'll need solid evidence. Your eyewitness account is powerful, but for a strong case, be it for divorce proceedings or potential settlement negotiations, it helps to have more proof. That means photographs, messages, any financial irregularities indicating he's funneling money to her or paying for her lavish gifts. Men in power often leave financial breadcrumbs." Angelina swallowed hard. "You think he might have used our accounts for her?" Talia offered a grim smile. "You'd be surprised how careless even the wealthiest men can be when infatuation is involved. We'll need a private investigator who can move swiftly and discreetly. That's step one." Angelina's resolve hardened. "All right, let's do it. I want to know everything." Talia nodded. "We'll proceed carefully. I'll set up a meeting with a trusted investigator. Once we gather enough evidence, we'll confront him legally and financially. If he wants to keep playing games, he'll find himself cornered." A surge of determination coursed through Angelina. She had never felt such a mix of heartbreak and steely resolve. But if Maxwell thought he could break her spirit without consequences, he would soon discover just how strong she truly was. Under Talia Anderson's guidance, Angelina embarked on a covert mission to gather irrefutable evidence of Maxwell's affair. While the betrayal had cut her deeply, she was now driven by a fierce desire for justice. It wasn't about revenge, at least she told herself that. It was about truth, consequences, and the protection of what she had built alongside Maxwell. Talia introduced her to a seasoned private investigator named Charles Donovan. Charles was ex-law enforcement, with a background in cybercrime and surveillance. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that put Angelina at ease. Their first meeting took place in Talia's office. Charles listened attentively as Angelina recounted the suspicious changes in Maxwell's behavior and the night she caught him in his office with Julia. "I'll start by tracking Maxwell's movements, both personal and financial," Charles explained. "If he's been seeing Julia regularly, they'll have a routine. Restaurants, hotels, gifts. There's always a trail." Angelina nodded, her chest tightening at the idea of seeing photographic evidence. Though she already had that fateful memory burned into her mind, she dreaded the proof that would confirm the depth and frequency of Maxwell's betrayal. In the ensuing days, Charles shadowed Maxwell discreetly. He placed a tracker on Maxwell's chauffeured Bentley, monitored his phone records, and even installed a small camera in the hallway outside his private office. Meanwhile, Talia kept Angelina informed about every new piece of information. Days stretched into a week, then two. Angelina grew restless, torn between wanting quick results and dreading the heartbreak that confirmation would bring. During this waiting period, Angelina decided to act normal, an instruction from Talia. She attended the usual social events, smiled politely for photographers at charity dinners, and continued with her philanthropic engagements. Maxwell, for his part, seemed eager to maintain the facade of their marriage in public. They posed for Society magazines at a high-profile gallery opening where Maxwell's company was a major sponsor. He draped an arm around her for the cameras, smiling as though nothing was amiss. But Angelina caught him texting surreptitiously when he thought no one was looking. The tension between them was palpable whenever they were alone. Silent dinners, separate bedrooms, stifled conversations. Every moment felt like an elaborate charade. Finally, one evening, Talia's call came through. "We've got something," she said. "Charles has surveillance that you should see." Angelina's stomach churned. "I'll be at your office in half an hour." She arrived to find Talia and Charles waiting in a conference room. Charles had laid out photographs on the table alongside printed phone logs. Angelina's heart pounded as she took in the images. Maxwell and Julia exiting an exclusive spa in Midtown, hand in hand. The next photo showed them kissing in a secluded booth at a dimly lit lounge. There was also a receipt for a luxury watch Maxwell had gifted her, paid for by one of Harrington Global's slush funds, if Charles's financial tracing was accurate. All these transactions point to Maxwell using business accounts, which could be classified as misuse of company funds, Talia explained, her tone grim. "It's not just a moral failing, it's potentially illegal." Angelina's face went white. He would risk the company's reputation just to impress her. Has he lost his mind? Charles offered a respectful nod. "In my experience, powerful men in the throes of an affair tend to believe they're untouchable. He might not even realize the legal implications." Talia placed a comforting hand on Angelina's shoulder. "We have more than enough evidence to build a case for a substantial divorce settlement. But the choice is yours. We can approach him quietly and negotiate, or we can go full throttle." Angelina stared at the damning photographs, her heartbreak searing anew. She closed her eyes, tears threatening. When she opened them, her voice was steady. "Maxwell has humiliated me. I won't let him walk away unscathed. We do this on my terms, properly, legally, and with no mercy." In that moment, she resolved she would not be a victim of Maxwell's duplicity. She would meet him on the battlefield he had created and make him pay for every lie, every broken promise. The trap was set, and soon Maxwell Harrington would realize the true consequences of underestimating his wife. While Angelina was working with Talia and Charles to finalize their legal strategy, she received an unlikely phone call. Julia. Her heart leapt, confusion and anger swirling. Why on earth would Julia be calling her? Against her better judgment, Angelina answered, "Hello?" A hesitant breath from the other end. "Mrs. Harrington." "Angelina," Julia said, her voice subdued, lacking its usual confidence. "I know this is awkward, but I need to talk to you." Angelina gripped her phone tighter. "About what? You've already done enough damage." "I get that you hate me," Julia said quickly, "but it's important. I've learned things about Maxwell, about the business. You might want to hear them." Angelina's skepticism flared. "Why would you help me?" A pause. "Because there's more to this story than you realize." Every instinct told Angelina not to trust her, but her curiosity was piqued. "Fine. Meet me at the cafe on Madison in an hour." Julia agreed, and Angelina ended the call with a mix of dread and anticipation. Was this another manipulation? She decided to inform Talia, who advised caution, but agreed it could be worth the risk if Julia had genuine information. An hour later, Angelina sat at a small corner table in the cafe, the same one where she'd often confided her deepest fears to Rachel. Now, she was waiting for her husband's mistress, a situation she never could have imagined. Julia arrived wearing a conservative trench coat, her eyes darting nervously. She ordered a chamomile tea before sliding into the seat opposite Angelina. The tension was palpable. "Let's be quick," Angelina said, keeping her tone cold. "I don't have time for games." Julia fidgeted with her teacup. "I understand. Look, I'm not proud of how this happened. Maxwell pursued me, and I got swept up in the thrill. But I've realized he's not who I thought he was. Angelina arched an eyebrow. That's hardly news to me. Julia bristled but pressed on. I know you've seen the photos. Maybe you even have more proof. But there's something else. Maxwell's been embezzling funds from the company's accounts, using shell corporations to hide them offshore. He told me it was just a rainy day fund, but it seemed sketchy. I asked too many questions, and now he's turning on me. Angelina's mind reeled. She knew Maxwell had misused company funds for personal gifts, but large-scale embezzlement? That was another level entirely. Do you have evidence? Julia nodded. Yes, screenshots of transactions, emails, recorded phone calls where he talks about it. I was careful. Something about him made me keep a record, just in case. Angelina stared at her with disbelief. You realize you're admitting to being complicit in illegal activity. A shadow crossed Julia's features. I know. That's why I'm here. I'm scared. If the feds come knocking, Maxwell will throw me under the bus. He said as much when I confronted him. I don't want to go down for his crimes. Angelina found herself in an unexpected position. Part of her wanted to lash out at Julia, to blame her for everything. But another part recognized that Julia's information could be the final nail in Maxwell's coffin, legally and financially. And beyond that, there was a flicker of empathy. Julia was young, perhaps naive, and now entangled in a web far more dangerous than just an affair. What do you want from me? Angelina asked, keeping her voice steady. Julia took a trembling breath. I'll give you the evidence. In return, protect me. Make sure I'm not scapegoated. If you pursue legal action, I'll testify. But I need assurance I won't be ruined. Angelina thought of Talia and how this new angle could amplify their case exponentially. If Maxwell had orchestrated elaborate financial crimes, a divorce settlement would be the least of his worries. He might be looking at federal charges. She also recognized that with Julia's cooperation, she'd hold all the cards. All right, she said slowly. I'll talk to my lawyer. If your evidence is solid, we'll figure out a way to keep you out of prison. But I can't promise you anything until I see proof. Julia nodded, relief flooding her face. Thank you. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small USB drive. Here, it's a start. Angelina took the drive, her fingers shaking. She looked at Julia, unsure what to feel. This was the woman who had trespassed into her marriage, yet now she might become an unexpected ally. As Julia left, Angelina stared at the USB drive in her hand. The path she was on had become much darker, more complicated. It wasn't just about a cheating husband anymore. It was about crimes, cover-ups, and potential ruin. Still, a part of her felt a strange sense of empowerment. She was no longer stumbling in the dark. She now held a potent weapon that could tip the scales completely in her favor. Angelina wasted no time. She left the cafe and headed straight to Anderson and Friedman LLP. Talia was in the middle of a video conference, but when she saw Angelina's face, she ended the call abruptly. What happened? Talia asked, ushering Angelina into the privacy of her office. Angelina handed over the USB drive. Julia came to me. She says Maxwell's been embezzling company funds, stashing money offshore. She gave me this. Talia's eyebrows shot up. Julia, the mistress? Angelina nodded, still struggling to process her own disbelief. She's scared Maxwell will pin it all on her if it comes to light. She wants protection. Talia inserted the USB drive into her laptop, scanning the folders. Her eyes widened at the array of documents, bank transfers, emails, internal memos referencing shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands, Some documents bore Maxwell's digital signature. Talia clicked on a few audio files, playing them briefly. Maxwell's voice was unmistakable, discussing creative accounting and private accounts that remain off the books. "This is huge," Talia said, her voice hushed. "Maxwell isn't just cheating on you personally, he's cheating the shareholders, the IRS, and possibly engaging in outright fraud. If this is real, he could face serious federal charges." Angelina swallowed hard. It was one thing to suspect financial impropriety, it was another to see it laid out in black and white. "What does this mean for my divorce case? For me?" Talia exhaled. "It means you have an enormous amount of leverage. If he's facing felony charges, he'll be desperate to cut a deal, possibly to keep this quiet, or to negotiate a plea. On the divorce front, if we use this evidence strategically, you could walk away with a very favorable settlement, maybe even full control of certain assets." "But what about me being tied to any of this?" Angelina asked, her face pale. "We're married. Will they think I'm involved?" "That's where we'll need to be careful. From what I see, these documents point only to Maxwell and perhaps a few associates. You're listed nowhere. But we need to show that you were unaware. If we play our cards right, you'll come off as the wronged wife." Angelina stared out the window, a sense of dread and resolution swirling. She had loved Maxwell once, but the man involved in these schemes was not the man she thought she'd married. "All right," she said finally, "what's our next step?" "We verify the authenticity of these documents," Talia replied. "Then we confront Maxwell with the evidence we have. We can propose a settlement that includes a substantial financial payout for you. In exchange, maybe we agree to keep quiet, for now, about his illegal activity, or we strike a deal with the authorities if necessary. He'll be cornered." A part of Angelina recoiled at the idea of blackmail, of using Maxwell's crimes as a bargaining chip. But then she remembered him standing there in his office, unapologetic, lying to her face. She recalled the nights she had cried herself to sleep, the emptiness of their home. This wasn't about stooping to his level. It was about self-preservation and justice. Her voice steadied. "Let's do it." Within days, Talia assembled a small team of forensic accountants and legal specialists to examine the USB drive's contents. The evidence was damning. It implicated Maxwell in multiple financial crimes, embezzlement, fraud, even potential money laundering. Meanwhile, Charles continued to gather photographic and testimonial evidence of the affair, building an airtight case on every front. Behind the scenes, Talia reached out to Maxwell's personal attorney, a sharp litigator named Peter Hensley, requesting a meeting. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of both Angelina's marriage and Maxwell's empire. Amid all of this, Angelina found herself in a state of surreal calm. She had cried her tears, mourned her lost illusions, and faced the ugly reality head-on. Now, she was on the offense. If Maxwell wanted to be the devil in this story, she would broker a deal that left her intact, and him facing the consequences of his betrayal and deceit. On a crisp Friday afternoon, Talia and Angelina arrived at a high-rise conference center in Midtown. Maxwell's attorney, Peter Hensley, had insisted on neutral ground for their meeting, a sleek boardroom overlooking the bustling city streets below. The floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a sunset that turned the skyscrapers golden, an ironic contrast to the tense mood inside. Angelina's heart pounded as she took her seat. Across the gleaming wooden table sat Maxwell, looking every bit the billionaire mogul in a tailored charcoal suit. His expression was taut, a mix of anger and apprehension. Next to him sat Peter Hensley, who exuded a cool, calculated demeanor. Talia calmly set her briefcase on the table, flipping it open with deliberate precision. "Thank you for meeting with us," Talia began, her tone courteous but firm. "We have several matters to discuss regarding Angelina and Maxwell's marriage, as well as certain financial irregularities." Maxwell's eyes flashed. "Angelina, is this really necessary? We could have resolved this privately." Angelina, her back straight, stared him down. "We're past that point, Maxwell." Peter Hensley cleared his throat. "We understand there have been personal tensions. However, Maxwell is willing to pursue an amicable settlement. We see no reason for a messy public dispute." A wry smile tugged at Talia's lips. "A noble sentiment, I'm sure, but the facts speak otherwise." She opened a folder and slid several photographs and documents across the table. "These are images of Maxwell with Miss Julia Green, taken over the past few weeks. In addition, we have verified financial statements indicating Maxwell used company funds for personal expenditures related to Ms. Green." Maxwell's face darkened, but he said nothing. Peter glanced at the documents, carefully maintaining a neutral expression. "These photos, while compromising, don't necessarily prove the misuse of funds." Talia kept her composure. "We thought you might say that. We also have bank records, emails, and audio recordings that do prove it, and that's merely the tip of the iceberg." She reached into her briefcase, producing a second stack of files. These documents detail offshore accounts linked to Maxwell. Significant sums moved out of Harrington Global and into these shell companies. She pushed them across the table. "We believe the SEC and the IRS would be quite interested in reviewing these." For a moment, silence reigned. Maxwell's jaw worked, and Peter's gaze flicked between the documents and his client. Angelina could almost feel Maxwell's panic radiating across the table. Finally, Maxwell spoke in a strained voice. "You'd betray me like this, Angelina, after everything we've been through." Angelina's heart clenched, but she stood firm. "You betrayed me first. You cheated on me, lied to me, and you're stealing from your own company. You've left me no choice." Peter interjected, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Let's be practical. What do you want, Ms. Harrington? We can negotiate a settlement that meets your needs." Talia leaned forward. "Here are our initial terms." She handed them a typed document outlining a substantial financial settlement, including properties, investment portfolios, and a seat on Harrington Global's board for Angelina. In return, Angelina agrees to keep this evidence sealed, provided Maxwell ceases all contact with Ms. Green and refrains from any further illegal activity. Maxwell scoffed. "You can't dictate who I see. This is ridiculous." Talia shrugged. "It's your choice, Maxwell. Proceed with a public divorce. Let the authorities uncover everything, and you'll face federal charges, possible prison time, or agree to these terms and keep your freedom." Peter and Maxwell exchanged tense whispers. The negotiation that followed was fraught with hostility and desperation. Maxwell demanded lower financial concessions, tried to maintain certain assets, but Talia held firm, reminding them of the staggering weight of the evidence. Eventually, Maxwell's bravado crumbled under the reality of potential criminal charges. He sank back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Fine," he said, his voice lifeless. "I'll sign." Angelina's stomach churned with a mix of triumph and sorrow. Here was the man she had loved, brought low by his own hubris. Part of her mourned the life they once had, but another part felt vindicated. This was her stand, her demand for respect and justice. Peter collected the documents, each signature leaving a profound weight in the air. When it was over, Maxwell refused to meet Angelina's gaze. He simply rose from the table and walked out, his once confident stride now hollow. The hush that followed felt like standing in the eye of a storm. Talia exhaled. That was tough, but we got what we needed. Are you all right? Angelina swallowed the lump in her throat. I'm not sure yet, but I will be. As they left the boardroom, Angelina reflected on the finality of that confrontation. She had won the battle in a legal sense, but her heart still ached from betrayal and loss. Even so, she felt a new sense of strength, a realization that she could endure the worst and still stand tall, and that, she decided, was worth more than any settlement could ever provide. News travels fast in the world of billionaires and high society. Within days of the settlement, rumors began circulating that something was amiss in the Harrington empire. Financial reporters picked up on subtle shifts. Maxwell quietly stepping back from certain public engagements, Angelina making appearances without her husband, and the hush-hush changes at Harrington Global. Though the specifics weren't yet leaked, it was enough to stoke speculation. Angelina continued her philanthropic duties, now with a renewed sense of independence. She took over an entire wing of the charitable foundation she had once co-managed with Maxwell, renaming it the Angelina Harrington Foundation for Women and Children. Freed from the constraints of her marriage, she was more determined than ever to make her mark on her own terms. Maxwell, meanwhile, did his best to present a united front at the office, but employees sensed a shift. Meetings were tense, stockholders were restless, and the board members whispered about irregularities. Though the divorce and financial controversies were kept under wraps for now, Maxwell's status as an untouchable mogul had been irreparably shaken. Julia, for her part, kept a low profile. She reached out to Angelina once to confirm the settlement's details. Talia assured her that as long as she cooperated if the authorities came calling, she would be safe from prosecution. It was an uneasy alliance, but in the end, Julia had provided the crucial evidence that sealed Maxwell's fate. Angelina couldn't bring herself to thank the mistress for anything beyond the documentation. The emotional scars were too raw. One morning, as Angelina sat in her penthouse, legally hers now thanks to the settlement, she received an unexpected visitor. The doorman announced that a journalist from the New York Times wanted a brief comment. Curiosity piqued, Angelina consented to meet the reporter in the lobby under the watchful eye of building security. The journalist introduced herself as Nina Phillips, a financial correspondent, looking into rumors of corporate malfeasance at Harrington Global. I'm not looking for a full statement, Nina explained politely, just a comment on what might be happening with Maxwell Harrington. There's talk of a shake-up at the company. Angelina hesitated. She had no desire to expose more than was necessary, but Talia had advised her that controlling the narrative could be advantageous, particularly if Maxwell tried to twist the story. I can confirm I am no longer involved with Harrington Global's daily operations, she stated carefully. I've focused my efforts on philanthropic work. Nina pressed gently. What about your personal relationship with Mr. Harrington? There's speculation about a divorce. Angelina held the reporter's gaze, remembering Talia's training in media management. I can only say that I'm taking steps for my own well-being. Beyond that, I have no comment. Nina nodded respectfully, withdrawing. Thank you. Should you wish to speak on the record in the future, you have my number. That afternoon, Angelina called Talia to fill her in. Talia listened, then offered a reassuring laugh. They smell blood in the water. If Maxwell thinks he can spin this, he's mistaken. You have enough leverage to keep him in line. And that leverage might soon be tested. A leak of the settlement terms could send shockwaves through the financial community. The affair might become tabloid fodder, tarnishing Maxwell's polished image. And if the SEC or the IRS came knocking, Maxwell's carefully curated empire would face a full-scale audit. Angelina braced herself for the onslaught of speculation and gossip, yet she felt oddly calm in the midst of it. She had the truth on her side, and formidable allies in Talia and Charles, along with the piece of evidence that could bury Maxwell if he tried anything underhanded. No longer was she the dutiful wife overshadowed by a powerful husband. She stood firmly on her own. So as the public eye swiveled to her, hungry for scandal, she vowed to remain poised. Let them whisper and wonder. Her priority was to rebuild her life from the ashes of betrayal, forging a new identity that belonged to no one but herself. Weeks turned into months. The settlement between Angelina and Maxwell remained sealed under strict confidentiality. In polite society, rumors of their separation grew louder, and official confirmation finally came in the form of a succinct statement. Angelina Harrington and Maxwell Harrington have amicably agreed to part ways. They request privacy during this transitional period. The understated press release belied the drama that had unfolded behind the scenes. Maxwell tried to project a sense of normalcy, but his name became noticeably absent from the front rows of fashion shows and the red carpet at charity galas. Investors grew uneasy about potential skeletons lurking in Harrington Global's closet. For her part, Angelina stepped into a new role, taking on the directorship of a major charity consortium. Freed from the shadow of her husband, she discovered an untapped reservoir of leadership skills. She even hosted a massively successful benefit dinner at the Plaza Hotel, where she announced a new partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a move that solidified her place as a philanthropist in her own right. Behind the scenes, Talia and Charles monitored Maxwell's activities, the hush money quietly exchanged, the damage control with shareholders, and the robust defense. Maxwell's attorneys orchestrated all pointed to a man trying to bury every trace of wrongdoing. No one came knocking at Angelina's door with subpoenas or accusations, thanks to the settlement's legal intricacies. Julia remained under the radar, presumably having started anew somewhere far from Manhattan's scrutiny. One late afternoon, while reviewing proposals for her foundation, Angelina received a call she never expected. Maxwell himself. She stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the accept button. Against her better judgment, she answered. His voice was subdued, lacking its usual confidence. "Hello, Angelina." She inhaled sharply, forcing her tone to remain calm. "Maxwell, what do you want?" A pause on the other end. "I need to meet with you. Privately." Angelina stiffened. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please," he implored, sounding genuinely desperate. "I have something to tell you." Despite everything, curiosity gnawed at her. "Fine. Tomorrow. In the conference room at Talia's office. That's the only place I'm willing to see you." She could practically hear his resigned sigh. "All right. I'll be there." The next day, Angelina arrived at the law firm, half an hour early. Talia waited with her, prepared to step in at a moment's notice if things went awry. When Maxwell arrived, she retreated to her private office, allowing them a shred of privacy in the adjacent conference room. Maxwell looked thinner, the lines around his eyes more pronounced. He removed his coat and sat opposite Angelina. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, Angelina broke the silence. "Why are we here, Maxwell?" He ran a hand through his hair. "I owe you an apology. I know it's too late, but I wanted to say it in person. I messed up. Terribly. I'm losing pieces of my life because I couldn't keep my priorities straight. Angelina felt a pang of something. Pity, maybe. But she kept her face impassive. You didn't just mess up. You destroyed our marriage and nearly jeopardized your own company. I know, he admitted, his gaze downcast. All the money, the power, I let it go to my head. It's no excuse, but I lost sight of what mattered. And now, I see you thriving, while I'm left picking up the pieces. A tumult of emotions swirled within her. What do you want from me, Maxwell? Forgiveness? Closure? He lifted his eyes. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'd like you to know that I'm going to step away from Harrington Global. The board is pushing me out quietly. In return, they won't press charges, and the financial authorities are investigating me, but I'm cooperating. I might get a reduced sentence if they find enough wrongdoing to bring charges. Angelina's breath caught. She had known this day might come, but hearing it aloud was surreal. So, you're losing everything? He exhaled, shoulders sagging. Maybe not everything, but close. I'm leaving New York for a while. I thought you should hear it from me directly. Angelina studied him carefully. For all his faults, Maxwell looked genuinely contrite in this moment. Thank you for telling me, she finally said, her voice soft. But you understand, that changes nothing between us. Our marriage is over. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. I know. They sat there in silence. Two people once bound by love and vows, now separated by betrayal and regret. Finally, Maxwell stood. Without another word, he left the conference room. As Angelina watched him go, she felt an unexpected wave of relief. Whatever the future held for Maxwell, Harrington was no longer her burden to carry. Talia entered moments later. Are you okay? Angelina nodded, exhaling the breath she'd been holding. Better than okay. I'm free. And she felt it, deep in her bones, an emancipation that signaled the end of a painful chapter and the promise of a new beginning, solely on her own terms. Sunlight poured through the windows of Angelina's penthouse, illuminating the modern art pieces she had recently acquired. Each piece reflected her journey, a kaleidoscope of bold colors, abstract lines, and unmistakable resilience. It had been almost a year since that fateful confrontation at Maxwell's office, and in that time, she had transformed her life. The Angelina Harrington Foundation for Women and Children had expanded beyond her wildest dreams. Corporate sponsors flocked to support her mission, appreciative of her transparency and devotion to real impact rather than vanity philanthropy. She'd also found a renewed passion for travel, visiting developing countries to see firsthand how her foundation's donations were being used. Every time she met a child whose life was improved by a new school or clean water, she felt a warmth that no amount of heartbreak could extinguish. Talia remained a close ally. Their friendship evolved beyond a mere attorney-client relationship. Over occasional lunches, they would laugh about the ruse of high society parties and discuss new opportunities to help women facing domestic or financial abuse. Angelina found a sense of purpose in assisting others who, like her, had been blindsided by betrayal. One breezy afternoon, while preparing for a philanthropic gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, she caught a snippet of financial news on television. Maxwell Harrington had officially stepped down from Harrington Global. A short press release stated he was focusing on personal matters and philanthropic interests. The anchor speculated on Maxwell's potential legal troubles, but no definitive statement was made. Angelina watched with a detached sense of calm. She no longer felt the sharp pang of heartbreak when she saw Maxwell's name. Instead, she recognized that the man she had once adored was now simply a cautionary tale, a reminder of how swiftly greed and ambition could corrode a person's soul. Her phone buzzed. It was Rachel Friedman. "I heard about Maxwell on the news," Rachel said. "I just wanted to check on you." Angelina smiled, leaning against her kitchen counter. "I'm fine, Rachel. Better than fine, actually. I'm heading to a gala soon, and tomorrow I fly to Ghana to open a new clinic." Rachel's voice brimmed with admiration. "You're unstoppable, Angie. I'm so proud of you." After the call, Angelina looked out at the skyline. For the first time in a year, she felt a sense of genuine contentment. The city that had once seemed filled with painful memories now glowed with the promise of second chances. That night, at the Met, she delivered a poignant speech about perseverance and rebuilding after personal tragedy. The crowd erupted in applause. Reporters who once whispered rumors about her divorce now approached with respect, eager to highlight her foundation's successes. Later, as she stood under the ornate arches of the museum, a sense of closure washed over her. She had come full circle, from suspicious wife to betrayed spouse, to a woman who took charge of her life and future. The journey had been fraught with heartache and anger, but she emerged stronger, wiser, and far more compassionate. When she finally slipped away from the gala, stepping into the balmy Manhattan night, she felt lighter. The city lights twinkled like a sea of possibilities. This was her world now, one she had reclaimed and reshaped. Love might come again someday, but for now, she was content to love herself and the impact she was making. She hailed a cab, chuckling softly at the realization that she no longer needed the chauffeured Bentley or the sycophantic attendants. Her wealth was still there, sure, but it no longer defined her. As she headed home, she looked forward to the horizon of tomorrow, a new dawn for Angelina Harrington, unburdened by deceit and fueled by a passion for meaningful change. And thus ends the tumultuous journey of Angelina and Maxwell Harrington, once the golden couple of Manhattan high society, torn apart by betrayal and reborn through courage and conviction. Angelina's path from heartbreak to self-discovery reminds us that even in the darkest betrayals, there lies the seed of rebirth. She took her pain, confronted the truth, and wielded justice to reclaim her power. In the end, she stood taller than ever, crafting a life defined by purpose, not by a faithless husband or empty illusions of perfection. If you found this story gripping, inspiring, or simply entertaining, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you help us bring more dramatic real-life fiction to your screen. Join us on this journey of storytelling, where hidden truths come to light and where resilience can triumph against all odds. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.